Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We are setting our coordinates for the late 1950s and the height of the 1960s. The world's oceans have become the ultimate no man's land of the Cold War. While the public eye is fixed on the Berlin Wall and the jungles of Vietnam, a much quieter, salt-sprayed game of chess is being played across the high seas. The agency faced a recurring problem: how to move specialized equipment, transport high-value assets, and conduct electronic eavesdropping in coastal waters without the footprint of a traditional spy network. The answer was hiding in plain sight by utilizing the massive global infrastructure of the United States Navy. The CIA could operate under the sovereign protection of a warship or the plausible deniability of a support vessel. This was a time when a destroyer wasn't just a combatant, but a floating laboratory for the most sensitive sensors in the Western arsenal. This was the marriage of the cloak and the anchor. This was JMBLUE. How did this operation get its name? The designation JMBLUE follows the agency's established maritime diagraph system. The prefix JM was assigned to operations and assets related to the Directorate of Plan's maritime branch, specifically those involving clandestine seaborne logistics. The suffix blue was a reference to blue water operations, the naval term for deep ocean maneuvers far from the shore. The name served as a functional descriptor. It was a JM maritime operation conducted with the blue environment of the U.S. Navy's fleet, allowing for a linguistic shield that sounded like standard naval shorthand to the uninitiated. JMBLUE transformed the gray holes of the Navy into floating agency outpost. The JMBLUE operation was a collaborative policy framework between the CIA and the Department of the Navy to provide logistical cover for intelligence activities. A quote from a declassified 1962 Naval Intelligence Directive: "Coordination between agency requirements and fleet schedules must be maintained with total compartmentalization to ensure the naval mission remains the primary public profile." End quote. Documentation confirms that JMBLUE involved the use of Auxiliary General Environmental Research, or AGER ships, which were officially oceanographic vessels but served as CIA listening posts. Records show that the agency installed black box compartments on standard Navy destroyers, accessible only by personnel with blue cover clearances. JMBLUE protocols allowed for the cross-decking of assets, where individuals could be moved from a civilian merchant ship to a Navy vessel under the cover of a nighttime medical emergency or refueling operation. A declassified quote from an internal CIA log on maritime cover: "The Navy provides the most stable platform for long-term signals collection in the Mediterranean and Pacific theaters." End quote. Technical memos reveal that JMBLUE utilized towed array sonars, not just for submarine detection, but for picking up the unique acoustic signatures of Soviet coastal communication cables. Documentation confirms that the agency used Navy submarines under the JMBLUE umbrella to tap undersea cables in the Sea of Okhotsk, Okhotsk. I think it's Okhotsk. Internal ledgers prove that the CIA reimbursed the Navy for the fuel and maintenance of specific vessels when their mission profile was diverted for agency special task. Logs indicate that JMBLUE assets were given dual comms suites, allowing them to transmit on standard Navy frequencies while using a hidden subcarrier for agency-only data. The agency maintained a naval liaison office at the Pentagon, specifically to synchronize JMBLUE movements with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Records show that JMBLUE included the training of Navy frogmen for agency-directed sabotage missions against foreign harbor infrastructure. A quote from a declassified 1967 operational review. The integration of agency personnel into the crew manifest of Navy support ships has proven to be an invisible method of theater entry. End quote. The project utilized merchant marine reserves as a secondary layer of cover, moving equipment between the Navy ships and CIA-owned shell companies. Documentation proved the agency disguised CIA-operated swift boats as standard Navy coastal patrol craft to conduct insertions in denied water. The JMBLUE program developed rapid paint kits, allowing a vessel to change its hull number and livery in less than 6 hours while at sea. Records confirm that all JMBLUE related Navy personnel were required to sign lifetime non-disclosure agreements, specifically regarding fleet agency interoperability. A quote from a declassified 1965 security briefing. On this ship, the captain is the law, but the man in the radio room with the blue folder is the mission. End quote. The agency used Navy aircraft carriers as floating launch platforms for high-altitude U-2 reconnaissance flights during the 1960s. Technical files reveal that JMBLUE safe houses were established within restricted zones of U.S. naval bases in foreign countries like the Philippines. The program funded the development of deep submergence rescue vehicles that were used for clandestine seabed recovery of Soviet missile fragments. Logs show that the CIA utilized Navy weather balloons launched from ships as a cover for atmospheric sensors designed to detect Soviet nuclear testing. Project JMBLUE oversaw the modification of the USS Halibut, turning a cruise missile submarine into a specialized seabed tap platform. A quote from a declassified ship's log. Equipment installed by civilian contractors under JMBLUE authorization is to be logged as navigational aid upgrades for the duration of the voyage. End quote. The program utilized false hull compartments to transport defectors through the Suez Canal undetected. Declassified budgets showed JMBLUE allocated over $12 million in 1964 for silent running modifications to older Navy frigates. The agency placed signals intelligence technicians as active duty ensigns on Navy vessels to manage interception equipment without alerting the standard crew. A quote from a declassified 1968 Maritime Branch memo. The proximity afforded by JMBLUE naval cover allows for the collection of signals that are otherwise attenuated by the time they reach land-based stations. End quote. Records state the JMBLUE was used to hide the transport of specialized ocean bottom photographic cameras to the site of the lost Soviet submarine K-129. The agency developed a specialized magnetic anomaly detector specifically for JMBLUE vessels to locate sunken nuclear warheads. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, JMBLUE protocols allowed for CIA agents to be embedded in Navy picket ships to monitor Soviet merchant vessel cargo. The Navy provided deep-sea mooring technology to the agency to secure listening devices on the ocean floor for years at a time. Quote from a declassified 1961 director's briefing, "A Navy hull is the most sovereign soil we possess. JMBLUE ensures we can take that soil anywhere on the globe." End quote. Internal memos confirm that JMBLUE personnel used color-coded identification cards to bypass shipboard security protocols during black operation phases. The CIA utilized Navy medical ships as neutral ground meeting locations for negotiations with high-level Soviet intelligence officers. Technical records prove that JMBLUE pioneered the use of low-frequency transmissions for ship-to-submarine communication in clandestine zones. The agency staged search and rescue drills as a cover for recovering reconnaissance satellite film canisters dropped into the ocean. A quote from a declassified naval CCO, "Under JMBLUE, the line between a routine patrol and an intelligence operation is whatever the agency requires it to be." End quote. Declassified reports confirm that JMBLUE assets were used to ferry specialized gear to the Navy's SEAL Team 1 for secret missions in Southeast Asia. The program utilized shipboard incinerators to destroy sensitive intelligence material immediately if a vessel was boarded by a hostile foreign power. Records show that the CIA used Navy oilers to provide cover refueling to non-military CIA vessels in the middle of the Atlantic. The JMBLUE program developed pressure-resistant encrypted flash drives for physical data transport between submersibles and surface ships. A declassified quote from a 1970 policy review: "The symbiotic relationship under JMBLUE has effectively expanded the agency's reach to every coastline on Earth." End quote. The agency maintained maritime safe zones in the Caribbean where Navy ships could transfer captured assets to CIA care without shore leave records. Operational logs reveal that JMBLUE vessels carried unmarked standard diving rig sets to allow CIA divers to operate from Navy decks without being identified as agency staff. Records show that JMBLUE funded the installation of hydrophone arrays on civilian manned Navy cargo ships to map Soviet acoustic paths. The agency utilized Navy picket ships as remote relay stations to bounce high-frequency radio signals off the horizon during deep cover insertions. Documentation proves that JMBLUE provided the diplomatic shield for the transport of high-yield encryption devices through foreign territorial waters. The CIA utilized the Navy's underwater construction teams to install power conduits for seabed sensors under the JMBLUE cover. Internal ledgers show that the agency paid for shipboard laboratory space on Navy oceanographic ships that was strictly off limits to Navy researchers. Declassified memos confirm that JMBLUE protocols allowed the CIA to reflag Navy patrol boats as local civilian vessels within minutes of an operation's start. The Navy granted priority docking rights at all U.S. foreign naval stations for any vessel carrying a JMBLUE cleared technical liaison. If you dive into the declassified JMBLUE archive, some of the deepest and darkest redactions occur in the section titled Annex Charlie, Asset Dispersal and Maritime Sanitization. This specific file contains the most redactions in the entire declassified history of the operation, hiding the details of what happens when a JMBLUE mission goes cold in deep water. Now, if you want to fall down a rabbit hole of naval legend, listen to the whispers of the ghost crews. There is a spine-tingling speculation that these redactions hide a recruitment program for men who don't exist. The theory suggests that for the most dangerous JMBLUE missions, the agency used sailors who had been legally declared dead or missing in action. These ghosts would run the sensitive gear, and the redacted files are believed to hold the names of those who were deleted from the Navy just to serve the CIA in total shadow. Another theory floating in the dark waters of the internet concerns the vessel modification logs. There is intense speculation that the agency built deep-sea interrogation chambers directly into the hulls of specific Navy submarines. The idea is that by conducting questioning miles below the surface, the agency could bypass every legal jurisdiction on Earth, using the psychological weight of the abyss to break even the toughest assets. The redactions, theorists argue, are the blueprints for these submersible black sites. Then there's the more bizarre chatter about acoustic deception. Some believe JMBLUE developed technology to mimic the sonar signatures of giant sea monsters or phantom ghost subs to lure Soviet vessels into treacherous reef zones. The theory claims the redactions hide a library of biological sonar fakes used to gaslight Soviet sonar operators into thinking they were tracking a Leviathan rather than a spy ship. A more recent speculation from the deep-sea research community suggests that the redactions in the seabed extraction section aren't about Soviet missiles at all. They theorize that JMBLUE was actually a cover for the recovery of out-of-place artifacts from the ocean floor. This theory suggests the CIA found something non-human in the Pacific trenches, and the Navy's massive recovery gear was the only way to get it to a surface ship without the world seeing the shape of the prize. Lately, a new speculation has emerged from theorists who study atmospheric anomalies. They believe the weather balloon facts hide a much darker project. The conspiracy theory posits that JMBLUE ships were used to deploy silver iodide dispersal systems to steer hurricanes towards Soviet-aligned islands in the Caribbean. The redacted logs, they say, are not about intelligence, but about the first successful test of maritime weather manipulation weapons. Was the JMBLUE policy a success? Tactically, it was a logistical triumph. It successfully provided the agency with a global, mobile, and sovereign platform that required zero additional infrastructure. Strategically, it was a high-stakes gamble. The policy was a success because it allowed the CIA to project power into areas where a civilian presence would have been immediately compromised. It successfully leveraged the gray zone of international maritime law. The success of JMBLUE is measured in the dozens of Soviet naval secrets recovered from the seabed without a single shot being fired. It proved that the Navy's global reach was the perfect Trojan horse for intelligence collection. The program successfully established the integrated fleet concept that remains the standard for U.S. maritime intelligence today. It was a categorical success in turning the U.S. Navy into the agency's most effective global courier and listening post. By utilizing the Navy's existing plausible presence, the CIA successfully avoided the diplomatic fallout that would have followed the capture of a standalone spy ship. The longevity of the program, lasting through multiple decades of the Cold War, is the ultimate testament to its success in maintaining operational invisibility. Furthermore, it successfully demonstrated that interagency cooperation could bridge the gap between military might and clandestine finesse. While bureaucratic friction existed, the results secured the U.S. lead in undersea warfare for a generation. It was a success that literally redefined the map of the Cold War, turning the high seas into a private agency playground. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs are concerned, the silent fleet resulted in breakthroughs that define modern maritime security, such as hydroacoustic signature modulation. The technology developed to hide the noise of JMBLUE engines is now used in modern stealth propulsion systems for luxury yachts and naval vessels. Clandestine ship-to-shore burst transmitters. To avoid detection, the agency developed high-speed data bursts that are now the basis for modern satellite emergency beacons used by sailors worldwide. Modular mission pods. The black box compartments led to the development of modern containerized mission modules, allowing one ship to switch between scientific combat and relief roles in hours. And deep sea recovery robotics. The agency's need to grab secrets from the ocean floor fueled the development of ROVs, used today in deep sea oil exploration and underwater archaeology. JMBLUE reminds us that the horizon is never as empty as it looks. The silent fleet proved that the Navy's strength was not just in its cannons, but in its ability to hide a secret within 1,000 tons of steel. In the vast blue of the world's oceans, the debt of intelligence was often paid in salt and silence. The partnership between the sailor and the spy remains one of the most enduring legacies of the Cold War. The wake left by these ships has long since settled, but the secrets they carried continue to ripple through the deep. We are all passengers on a sea where the most important things are always hidden beneath the waves. The steel holes that protect our shores are the same ones that carry the silent eyes of our intelligence. It is a legacy written in brine, a history that remains half submerged in the declassified archives of the deep. Thanks for listening. Stay safe. And remember, the deepest secrets are always at sea. Join us next time as we examine KU Mud. In the destabilized corners of the world, the agency didn't just watch history. They influenced the men who wrote it. We'll uncover the facts behind KU Mud, the operations in destabilized regions to influence local warlords, and tribal leaders. It was a game of loyalty, leverage, and the cold reality of power in the dust. Join us next time for the Warlord's Whisper. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.